Recording in progress.
Hi, welcome to Kismet. I'm Brie Estelle, and this podcast is for anyone who wants to transform and expand and deepen their understanding of themselves. I will be weaving psychology, astrology, mysticism, and personal embodiment for people who seek spiritual clarity, healing, and want to embody wholeness. So, if you're here like me to liberate and evolve and manifest and live a life that's fulfilling, then stay with me, click subscribe, and connect with me on any of the social platforms. Okay, today we're going to talk about this beautiful full moon in Gemini, and it is all the things. And I feel very connected to this full moon. Gemini and Sagittarius are an amalgamation of many different things, ideas, thoughts, understandings, and they really connect us with awe, with possibility, with just how vast this universe is. Gemini and Sagittarius are on one axis. So when we're in Sagittarius season, we're going to have a full moon in the sign of Gemini. And that's what we're dealing with on December the 4th, 2025. So that's this coming Thursday and 4:14 p.m. if you're in Arizona. So adjust for your time zone. Sag and Gemini always remind me and have led me to this very deep understanding that there is no one right way. There is many possibilities in this lifetime. And it is so vital for us to remember this, to return to this concept and this idea that we are in ever evolving motion, that we're in this universe, which is a spiral, and spirals move forward and backward in a sense. Of course, it's always moving forward, but there's a feeling of sometimes we have to move backwards. So that makes it so that there's really no one answer to life. There's no clear right and wrongs in life. And that's a really hard concept for us to accept. And it is also conflicts with a lot of the nature that we want to live in, which is sort of, we want stability. But we are mutable beings, and Gemini and Sag are mutable energies, meaning that life is ever changing, it's ever evolving, and there's just validity in every single way of being. So Sagittarius is my south node, and this is an energy that sort of beckons me to proclaim this truth that everything is valid, that there's a reason to do everything in life, but not for everyone. We have different things at different times, and we need to know what is for us at this time in our own life. And so often with a lot of the energies that we embody, we want to project. We want other people to do what we think we're supposed to do. And what that does is that inhibits freedom. And Gemini and Sag, especially Sagittarius, we are in Sagittarius season, is about bringing freedom. And not everything brings freedom or liberation. And so there's this kind of tug and pull between ideas and answers and solutions and what's liberating and what's freeing. So Sagittarius is like, yeah, but we need to get free. We need to be liberated. And Gemini is like, yes. And we're not always in times of freedom. Actually, ways that we learn, and Gemini is a lot about learning, is being in some sort of constriction or maybe even a bondage where we feel sort of trapped. And this is on purpose. We go through these seasons of being in a bondage or being in constriction so that we get tired and so that our soul gets hungry enough to actually move through a transformation. So often we don't want those seasons of constriction, and yet they are the very thing that stir our soul to actually break out of the bondage. So this is why I'm very, very adamant that we never want to subject ourselves to right and wrong thinking. And personally, I never subject myself to that. If I find myself getting into right and wrong, I'm always coming back to, remember, there's a season for different things. And sometimes a person needs to be in constriction in order for them to get exhausted and finally decide they're ready to change. So right and wrong keeps us from mutability. And one thing I sort of always encourage you to look at for yourself is if you think that you're so free and you know the answer to everyone else's problems, or you know the answers to everyone's issues in life, then I would ask you to ask yourself, are you really free? Because freedom has very significant markers. We can see that we are free when we're not triggered. We can see that we're free when we don't have a need to tell others what to do with their life. Because if we need to tell others what to do, then we are in a bondage to them doing what we think they should do. So freedom is when we don't have to shame anyone for their choices, when we don't have to blame anyone for their choices. Freedom is when we are able to spend our time doing everything that we want to do. Okay, freedom is when we're able to say no and disappoint people. Freedom is being able to tell the truth even though people aren't going to respond well. If we are afraid to tell the truth because of how someone's going to respond, we are not free. We're not free to be ourselves. We're not free to let life happen. And freedom is also this ability to hold space for the emotions of others without taking it personally. And I'm sure there's many other ways that we could say freedom exists, but these are just some of the most basic ones that most humans are really struggling with. And this is how we can know, oh, we're actually in some sort of bondage. And bondage isn't wrong, because like I said, bondage will keep us will keep us in a space where we gain understanding about this bondage. And this is the real beauty of Gemini and Sagittarius. It is this polarity and duality energy. Two things can be true at the same time. And life is not one way, and it isn't supposed to be. So there are times of stability and there are times of uncertainty. There's times to move forward, there's times to move backward. And in this world we live in, we think always forward movement, always stability. But actually, there's a lot of beauty that comes through uncertainty. There's deep trust. There's inner stability that comes from external uncertainty. This is why these two energies are so fascinating to me, because they ask us to expand in our sort of our limited thinking and get outside of our box. So this Gemini full moon is really, really speaking to me, and maybe it is for you too. What you would want to do is look back to the new moon that we planted seeds for this full moon back in June of 2024. So if you have notes or journals, or you can check your emails or your texts, look back at June 6th, 2024. This is where we had a new beginning. Then on March the 6th of 2025, we had a turning point energy. So whatever was planted on the 6th of June in 2024 reached some kind of turning point in March of this year. And now we are at this culmination point. This is about celebration, this is about awareness, and this is where we're noticing what's working and what isn't. What started and what succeeded. What is stuck and what is not working, and what is working. What is serving us, what is not serving us. So Gemini is this archetypal energy that relates to our ability to communicate, to think, talk, speak, write. This is our earliest perceptions, and this is how we take in the world on a day-to-day basis. So we take information and ideas in and we process it, and this is the Gemini archetype. Gemini tends to be very quick and witty and sharp, and this is where we're learning how to think for ourselves and speak for ourselves. This archetype is about moving from one thing to another very quickly and sort of without missing a beat. It's about transmitting information, ideas. It's about assessing information, setting up logistics, seeing the way all kinds of different things can fit together. Gemini tends to be well-spoken. It's a very skill-based energy. So it can be about teaching, writing, speaking, and it can also be about, some kind of very significant details, really focusing on the details of something. Gemini is also sort of a jack of all trades. It's an ability to synthesize many different avenues of information and ideas in order to bring something together in a new and fresh way. The Gemini archetype understands how to learn and trust our own thoughts. It's about listening to yourself. It's about discovering ideas and truth. And Gemini as an archetype invites us to use our voice. Now, the shadow of this energy is really that double-mindedness. Gemini is the twins. It's being able to go from black to white thinking. And it's being able to be in gray, and it's sort of it can be a lot of uncertainty, a struggle making decisions. This is an air energy, so it has a lot to do with the mind and thinking. So the shadow of Gemini can be this sort of ADD. We're not able to sit and focus. We're having a hard time paying attention to people. We get easily distracted when we're in the middle of a task or when we're talking to somebody and we're really not listening. So some of the strengths of Gemini is to be a good listener and to be a good speaker. And the struggle is actually the complete opposite, which is a real difficult time paying attention and a difficult time conveying ideas. So there's sort of this coping mechanism that happens with Gemini when we are not confident in our own truth, when we are not confident in our own ideas, then we tend to get distracted, avoid. Another sort of distraction energy or coping mechanism with Gemini is to stay superficial. So anytime anything deep happens, the Gemini energy can, not always, sometimes, want to pop out of that depth and avoid it. Do anything to change the subject. So it can be a very deflecting energy. Not really looking inward, not really able to dig deep into the soul self. This is not wrong or bad. This is just like some of the struggles that Gemini energy can have. We all have Gemini and we can all access this. Now, the shadow of Gemini can also be knowing all kinds of different things, knowing all the answers, sounding very intelligent, really like being able to articulate things that sound so right and so good, and being very charismatic with your words, but actually deep down not having the ability to embody those at all. So you will see this a lot with like pastors, with speakers, podcasters, people that are very good at talking and articulating, but all it is information and ideas, and it's not really in their body. It's not really something they're able to live out, and there can often be a ton of hypocrisy with Gemini energy. And this isn't, again, right or wrong or good or bad. It's just this awareness that we can know the answer but not be integrated. We can know the answer and not be aligned. We can say the right thing, but not be able to live that right thing out. And there can be a lot of illusion around Gemini energy. We'll look at people who are on platforms and think, oh, they have it together. They know the answer. But when you see or meet them in real life, you realize actually they just know the answer, but they're not actually living it. So this full moon is very related to this feeling of truth and our ability to expand ourselves. Now, if we get stuck in a truth, we end up limiting ourselves, but we do need truth in order to expand. And this is that polarity and duality of Sag and Gemini. This reality that there are many truths happening all at one time. There's not just one truth at any given time. And we need to be able to find our truth for right now and realize when that truth is ready to change. We also don't want to project our truths onto others, because that is our inability to embody it for ourselves. Because if once you understand Gemini and Sag energy, you understand that actually taking in and integrating all the things you think you know takes a lot of energy. And you won't be projecting that outward if you're actually using that to live it inside of yourself. And this is one of the gifts of the mutable energy. It's this ability to evolve our truths, to change, to see what we might have missed, to see, oh, I was saying that this was true, and now I'm realizing that that was actually hindering me. And if you've been projecting whatever that was as a truth out and saying, oh, this is the truth, never go backwards, never go to your ex, and then you're realizing, oh, you actually need to go backwards in order to go forwards, then you've gone into hypocrisy. And so this is why it's so important that truth is malleable. It is changing, but you need to be anchored in it at the same time. This is difficult to articulate and understand. It takes you sitting with your truths, maybe daily, maybe weekly, maybe monthly. But your truth today is most likely not going to be your truth in a month or a week or a year. For fixed archetypes, this can be really hard, but you want to open the mind to see the wisdom. That wisdom is about evolving. It is about seeing new ways of thinking. So this full moon is connecting us with the power of our thoughts and our words. And our thoughts and our words relate to our ability to make choices about our own destiny. So Sag and Gemini are all about what's happening in the mind, the words, the thoughts that you're speaking to yourself, and the words that are coming out of your mouth are either going to anchor you into your own wisdom, or these words are going to be a weapon that you unintentionally use against yourself. So if you're in hypocrisy, the unconscious mind will know that. And the unconscious mind will then be used against you, because you will be holding this deep inner knowledge that you're in hypocrisy, maybe unconsciously, maybe it's not happening at a conscious level. And that's where anxiety can come in. And Gemini and Sag have a lot to do with anxiety. We are often very unaware of what's happening in our mind and our thoughts. And a lot of teachers nowadays are saying, like, it's not your thought if it's not something you want it to be. And what that does is that disempowers you, because all the thoughts you're thinking are your thoughts. That's why you're thinking them. But what you want to learn how to do is become a director of your thoughts. Your mind is a tool. And you might not be using that tool in a way that's serving you. And this is what I am so incredibly passionate about. My North Node is in Gemini. And this is why I teach people in somatic release and neural reprogramming how to use their words and their mind and their thoughts to direct their life. So the full moon is in a square to the nodes of fate, or we might call them the nodes of destiny. And the nodes are these points in the chart that reveal our life path, what our soul needs or longs to expand into. We can call it the nodes of fate or the nodes of destiny, and that is because fate is what happens when we are choosing life from our unconscious. That means that we're living out the pattern without acknowledgement of the pattern. Destiny is what happens when we begin to choose from a conscious state. And I want to be clear that unconsciousness is not better or worse than consciousness, and it's not right or wrong. If you live from fate and from the unconscious, you can still have amazing things happen in your life. You can still have an incredible life, and lots of people are. There is a difference, and the difference has to do with one word, and that is freedom. Both destiny and fate will bring difficulty and challenge, and both will bring amazing expansion. The difference between them is, are we free inwardly? And like I talked about in the beginning, an evolutionary experience of our soul is to learn to experience freedom. So when I'm talking about destiny, I'm talking about the soul moving into liberation. Being given, being able to step into choice, to free yourself, to do what you truly desire. So under the full moon on December the 4th, we have this choice point. Because we have a square and there's a tension, there's an opportunity here. It may be conscious or it may be unconscious. Something may be happening in your external world that's probably going to be more unconscious. Or you might be in this place where you're getting ready to make a conscious decision, a conscious change. You're getting ready to step into a new opportunity, to move, to evolve in some way. It could be very tense. It could be very exciting. It may be a big stretch for you. You know, tension and excitement can be very similar feelings, because the tension can be like, oh no, what if this happens? And the exciting can be like, oh my gosh, what if this happens? They're very similar energies, different axes. Now we have Mercury in Scorpio that rules this lunation. And Mercury in Scorpio is quite an intense energy. You know, Scorpio is this sort of deep transformational energy. So that leads me to believe that a lot of people are going through something, or maybe they're giving an opportunity that feels maybe big or intense or dramatic. And dramatic things can be positive. They can be helpful or they can be harmful. I think I like it that way. They can be helpful or they can be harmful. Drama is about shaking up the world around us. So if you do something that people don't like, you're probably going to cause some drama in your life. Or if you're keeping a secret and then suddenly that secret gets revealed, you're probably going to create some drama in your life. But those are two very different kinds of drama. So drama can relate to sort of exposing something that's been hidden. This can be secrets, but this can also be like a revealing of a part of you that maybe you had hidden, that now you're ready to be like, no, this is who I am. And people are like, whoa, this is who you are? I had no idea. So profound experiences can be very dramatic, and that can be a very uplifting experience. So drama brings forward a truth. Something is revealed. So something for you could be revealed in a very beautiful way. It could be revealed in a very challenging way. Either way, this tension, this point of change, of opportunity, is about moving you towards the nodes of fate or destiny. And something intense might be coming to the surface around this time. The key here is that you're most likely needing to make some kind of important decision. It may or may not be at the full moon that you make the decision. But it is going to happen probably in the next 6 to 9 months after this moon. Some people, it's going to be right on this day. Other people, it's going to be within 6 to 9 months. Another thing you want to be aware of is the looping thoughts that could be happening with Mercury and Scorpio. That archetypal energy is about getting sort of caught up in something, being caught up in a drama, being caught up in your mind. So take some time during this full moon to slow down and think about what you're thinking about. Listen to the words you're saying. Listen to these stories that are inside of you. Because this is a turning point, and it's most likely going to be a very inward decision. It can be external, but mainly there's something deep and internal that is happening. And because Mercury is very connected with this full moon, and Mercury is still in the shadow period, this could have something to do with what happened in November. So maybe your soul is asking you to look at a truth, or maybe you were working on something during November, and now this is the time where there's sort of this turning point that relates to what happened. You might be asking yourself to look at some kind of truth. And this is a really important thing to think about. Maybe you are asking yourself under this lunation to tell yourself the truth about a job or a relationship or a friend or something, some event. Okay? You want to ask yourself, do I really want to be in this relationship? And if the answer is yes, then maybe you need to release some way of showing up that is not serving the relationship. If the answer is no, and you don't want to be in the relationship, then it's time to get honest with yourself. Time to tell yourself the truth. Maybe tell the person the truth. If it's a job, you want to ask yourself, do I really want to be in this job? If the answer is yes, then it's time maybe to stop complaining about the job. Maybe it's time to start changing how you bring yourself into that job. If the answer is no, you do not want to be at this job, then maybe it's time to realize that you're going to let it go and start looking for something you actually want to be doing. If you're feeling like this tension to quit some toxic habit or some toxic escapist pattern, then maybe you want to ask yourself, yes, if it's yes, I'm ready to let this go, then this is the time to anchor into and choose. This is the time to be thinking deeply about what it is you truly desire, who you truly want to be. If the answer is no, and you are not ready to quit the toxic habit or escapist pattern, then you want to take a moment and stop shaming yourself. Look within. What is this habit? What is this pattern trying to show you and teach you about yourself? How are you trying to comfort yourself? Why are you not okay? Maybe it's not time to release it yet, but it will be. There's a lot of complexity here. And so definitely, if you need support or to work with somebody, this is a complex energy. Often we think of Gemini as sort of a simple energy, but it's actually very complex because there's so much duality. There's so many different ways to look at a situation, so many different ways that you could move forward with something. And this is why you need to anchor into what is true for you now, not what's true for you in a week or a month or a year. You can't know that. You can only know what's true for you right now. What's going to bring freedom to your body, mind, and spirit now? And do you even want the freedom? Some people don't want the freedom, and that's okay. If you don't want freedom, you don't have to have it. We have a lot of fear around choosing freedom. It's terrifying. I know when I had to choose freedom for myself, I had so much grief and so much fear, and it felt so gripping. I had no idea who I was going to be or how I was going to do anything. I felt so small. But day by day and little by little, I moved forward because I anchored into a truth. I anchored into knowing that I needed to follow a path that didn't make sense to other people. So, again, remember, if you're not going to intentionally choose, fate will choose for you, and that's okay. If you are ready to intentionally choose, this is the time to free yourself. This is my area of expertise: freedom, liberation, using the mind. My North Node in Gemini is what has brought the most transformation in my life. And I'm here through somatic release and neuro reprogramming, this one-to-one session that I offer, to teach you how to do the same thing for yourself. So under this full moon, you might be wanting to ask yourself a couple questions. Number 1, what is my truth right now? Number 2, what is important to me? What is a yes or a no for me right now? What turning point am I at, and what choice do I want to make, or what choice do I not want to make? Okay, Gemini relates a lot to our nervous system. So your nervous system might be very activated during this full moon because of this square energy, which is you might not be sure what you're thinking or what you're feeling. And I see this a lot with people who have strong Gemini energy or Virgo energy, where they're really not clear. There's so many thoughts, there's so many feelings, and it's so activating, and it's so physically upsetting to the body. So if you need support, reach out for a one-to-one session. I offer readings, transit readings, birth chart readings, all kinds of readings. There's many possibilities under this full moon. So I may not have said every possibility, but I hope that this has given you something to chew on, something to think about as we move under the full moon energy this week. And I'm going to leave it here for now. If you want to support me, click the like button, subscribe, connect with me on social media. And if you're interested in one-to-one work, you can find me at kismetmystic.com. Other than that, thank you so much for being here. I'm sending you so much love under this full moon. Bye for now.